Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on our journey and discussion through the films that are included in this set released by the Criterion Collection in 2020 called Essential Fellini. And today I'd like to focus on that film which is found on disc number 14. This is the film from 1987, and it is INTERVISTA. This is the film from 1987, and it's directed by Federico Fellini, and story and screenplay are credited also to Federico Fellini, with contributing writer identified as being Gianfranco Angelucci, and cinematography Tonino Delle Colli, and music by Nicola Piovani, which has homages and cues to the great Nino Rota. And it stars, among other people, Sergio Rubini, and also features Marcello Mastroianni and Anita Ekberg and Federico Fellini himself. This is the very unique and utterly fascinating film, Intervista. The film itself is essentially about a Japanese film crew that is following Fellini and is in essence interviewing Fellini and asking him about his artistic process and working on his current film. And within the world of Intervista, we understand that Fellini and his crew, which include people like Maurizio Main, they are engaged in trying to make a Fellini film, the next project, which is Fellini's adaptation of Franz Kafka's America. And so that is the focus of Fellini's current artistic attentions as captured in this film. And during this time, of course, the Japanese film crew are following Fellini around and asking him questions. This also provides the great opportunity for the Japanese film crew, and thus us as viewers, to live in the world that is the studios of Cinecittà. And as we know, Cinecittà is a very important place in the identity of Fellini, the artist and filmmaker. And we've seen many supplements in past Blu-ray discs in this set that make reference to, for example, Studio 5 of Cinecittà. And so here we have a film that is also a kind of ode to Cinecittà. It feels also like a love letter to Cinecittà, and all the magic and all the grand illusion and all the wondrous things of cinema that are taking place in this world of Cinecittà, and the Fellini magic that is also being applied, as I say, with Fellini and company trying to make this film of the work by Franz Kafka. That's not all, though, because also embedded as layers to this film are reenactments or depictions of Fellini as a young man, according to Fellini, visiting Cinecittà for the first time. And this is so interesting because what we have is we have a film that is covering the process of casting the actors that will portray Fellini and the various people that he meets in this particular point in the late 30s, early 40s, when he visits Cinecittà for the first time, according to Fellini. And we get the reenactment, but also it blends almost seamlessly between the world of the reenactment and then the world of the filming of the reenactment. And then we see Fellini talking about the reenactment in the story, and he himself admits that he might not be remembering all the details correctly. That's what he says in the film. And so that is even yet another layer of wonderful artistic ambiguity that is taking place. And so this is an example of the type of really complex metatextual layering that is happening within the confines and within the context of this film, Intervista. This is utterly fascinating stuff, and it serves as such a potent reminder that Fellini still has it, even during this time, which is admittedly at the very tail end or nearing the end of his career as a filmmaker. Still at this point in time in the late 1980s, he still has it, and he's very clever, and he's very witty, and he is playing with the idea of cinema, and it's becoming a self-reflexive thing. This is very much like 8.5 and Guido in that film, and there it was among other things a focus on the crisis of creativity. Well, here in Intervista we also have a focus on the act of creativity itself, but with Fellini at the very center of the proceedings, because this is his film and it's his story, but it's also the story of him making a story. And in that way, it's a film within a film within a film, or it's a film that has, I think, many films within it. It has the Japanese film crew story. It has the Franz Kafka adaptation, America adaptation. It also has the film itself. So there are many meta levels that are taking place, and this is very consistent with a lot of other projects that we've seen by Fellini before. Roma is an example. Fellini, A Director's Notebook, is an example. Orchestra Rehearsal is an example. And Clowns is another example, and others, where we see Fellini in the self-reflexive mode, turning, and the ship sails on as well, turning the focus on the act of filmmaking itself, and thus creating the sense of something that we are seeing now may or may not be real. I mean, I think the premise of this is that it's like a documentary focusing in on Fellini, but the more we consider it, the more we progress, the more we realize that the lines between documentary and fiction are becoming so blurred on purpose, such that it's hard to tell, and perhaps we realize along the way that what we're watching is not something that is documentary, but is in fact wholly artifice. And that's a good thing too, because as we've said before, Fellini is all about using artifice in order to make something happen, using artifice in order to capture the essence of humanity, using artifice, the artifice of cinema, in order to create the illusion, the magic that is the essence of the greatness that is the Fellini-esque cinema. And indeed, using light to make sunshine, using film lights to make sunshine. I mean, that's the nature of a great artist in cinema, and that is what Fellini is doing here and elsewhere. And so this is indeed a film that is through and through about artifice, and it's focusing in on the creation of something using props and using lights and using actors and using makeup and costumes and fashion. But it is still and it's a process, but still it's a process that is whose sole purpose is to create some kind of magic in cinema. And so this film, Intervista, is also focusing in on that aspect, I think, very, very cleverly, while maintaining the Fellini wit of going from meta level to meta level, and seeing reenactments that suddenly become the focus of the drama, and then we take a step back, and then we take a further step back, and then we go right back into the drama. So it becomes this almost hall of mirrors type of affair that is also very entertaining, very funny, very warm, and very nostalgic, and very moving and emotional. One of the most famous aspects of this film is a very surprising moment where we have the appearance of Marcello Mastroianni and Fellini and also Anita Ekberg. And we have this very magical moment where they are joined together and they are reunited. And this is a great occasion for them and for us to look back on a very significant part of their careers in cinema, namely the film La Dolce Vita. And this provides one of the most poignant and poetic and very emotional points of the film, namely the effects of time and aging, but also the idea that cinema captures something of the magic and the beauty and the real the ephemeral nature that is maybe capturing a spirit in time and place that is no longer of the now, but still it exists and it is captured forever in cinema. So that's one of the things about this film that's so great. It's talking about cinema, but it's also focusing in on what makes cinema so great and what makes cinema so magical and what makes it so moving and poignant and emotional, especially when we're talking about Fellini's cinema here, La Dolce Vita and INTERVISTA. And it's a beautiful moment, one of the greatest moments in Fellini's cinema, and it feels almost like, in many ways, a type of farewell or a type of goodbye, but it's a goodbye or farewell in that lovely, sweet nature that Fellini invests with his camera and his cinema. And so it's so poignant and so moving, and that's a great example of how this film is doing wonders with what it is. Focusing in on Cinecittà, focusing on Fellini the filmmaker, focusing in on aspects of Fellini's past, focusing in on aspects of Fellini's young adulthood, and also his past as a filmmaker, and also the appearance of these great stars and celebrities that were part of the world of Fellini. And we see Fellini himself engaged in that energetic, witty, charismatic way that we understand Fellini to be. This is the film Intervista. The Blu-ray that is found in the Essential Fellini box set is purported to be based on a 4K digital restoration of the film, and it looks really great. This is a film that never had any prior Criterion Collection release, and so one of the great joys for me about this set, it's a set with many joys, but one of those great joys is the fact that it includes Intervista. And my goodness, what a great presentation of a great film this is. So if you haven't seen it yet, my friends, please check it out. It is so worth it, especially in the context of a journey through the Fellini films that are included here. It does come at the very end. It's not officially Fellini's last film. It's in terms of his feature film filmography, it's his penultimate film, so second to last film. But it ends the run of Fellini films as captured in the set. And in that way, it does feel like a fitting conclusion to this kind of Criterion Essential Fellini journey. And in that way, and in many other ways, and I was trying to suggest earlier, this film is very important in the Fellini canon and so entertaining and so moving and so poignant. So please check it out if you can. And it's a great presentation by Criterion. And speaking of the Blu-ray, we also have a number of supplements that are included here. The first is At Home with Federico Fellini, and this is 1987 from Italian TV, approximately 17 minutes. And this is an interview with Federico Fellini about his views on Franz Kafka and also specifically about America. And this is important because as we understand the plot of Intervista, it's part of the plot is about Federico Fellini and his crew trying to make a film that is an adaptation of Franz Kafka's America. And so that's the occasion for asking Fellini here in this interview about his views on Kafka and the works. And Fellini, for example, identifies his admiration for Kafka and how he seems to be focusing in on the mysterious and the exaggerated and also the horrifying, but also seems to be engaged in a type of sense of humor about it. And also he makes comparisons between Kafka and Dickens, and in particular he references Oliver Twist when he's talking about America. And this is, I think, really, this conversation then leads also to some very interesting, insightful observations about how Fellini deals with the question of how one interprets his films. And it's a really interesting parallel with Kafka, too, because I think Kafka's works lend themselves to a whole variety and a range of various possible interpretations of his story and the themes. And I think this similar type of interpretive possibility is true for Fellini's works. So I find that parallel also quite fascinating. So that's an example of why this interview here at Home with Federico Fellini is very important. And also on another meta-level type of reading, this is an interview of Fellini. And so we have seen so many interviews, so many great interviews with Fellini, audio and video, or filmed interviews on other supplements or other discs of this set. And here is another disc with other supplements that are interviews with Fellini, and they are great. But we cannot help but be reminded of the fact that even in the film Intervista, which is about an interview, we get a sense of Fellini being playful and witty, and maybe he's not always, maybe he is embellishing certain things here and there. And so there's always something about that. And now that we get a supplement for the film Intervista, which is in fact another interview, I think that's another interesting engagement with this particular supplement called At Home with Federico Fellini, as well as the others. So really fascinating stuff. Again, 17 minutes from 1987. Then the next supplement is called Fellini Racconta, Passeggiante nella Memoria, and please pardon me for my poor pronunciation. This is from 2000, and it's approximately 52 minutes. And this is a collection of various interviews given by Fellini late in his career, or in the later period of his career. And he is talking about various themes about his career. And he's talking, for example, about his views or his depictions of female characters and how he feels about women in general, and how he and his hero, cinematic hero, Charlie Chaplin. And he's also talking about Rimini, and he's also talking about journalism and how he had early ambitions to become a journalist. And we also get comments about Rossellini, Roberto Rossellini, and television as well. One of the things about Fellini in the 1980s is he is also dealing with the concept of television and how it is affecting the Italian film industry as he knows it. And so TV is something that he identifies as being one of the factors that is affecting the Italian film industry. So he has some comments to make about TV. He has some comments to make about Berlusconi and Kafka and the producer Angelo Rizzoli and Walt Disney, and also Marcello Mastroianni. And he also says something very interesting along the way, which is that he says that there's no difference between his films and his life, which I find to be so profound, so profound. And there are so many other elements where he is speaking about his past and his views, and he still maintains so much vigor and so much life and so much energy and so much warmth that we have seen in all of these interviews that he's given, including this one, or the collection of interviews that we see here. And we also have the montage, or we have the excerpt from the United States Hollywood Academy Awards from the early 1990s, where he was given an honorary Academy Award, Oscar. And we see excerpts from the speech that he gave, and we see excerpts of the little montage film that was shown on the occasion of presenting him with the Oscar. And I remember this moment because I saw the broadcast live, in fact, and I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know ahead of time that they would be giving Federico Fellini an honorary Academy Award. And it was in the early 90s, so this was still before I really began to know who Fellini was. But it was a fascinating thing to see. And I remember too, Marcello Mastroianni was there and Sophia Loren was there. And I loved Marcello Mastroianni, and he emphasized the word, and I loved how he said Fellini-esque. It was such a great moment. And the presentation of the award to Fellini. And it's captured in this particular supplement. And we have also in the audience Giulietta Massina. And my goodness, the type of emotional electricity that's captured in that moment, you can see it in the reaction by Giulietta Massina. It's really quite beautiful and heartwarming. So it's nice to see reference to that moment as part of this supplement, Fellini Racconta. Again, approximately 52 minutes from 2000. I strongly recommend it. Then we have the 1963 Gideon Bachman interview with Marcello Mastroianni, the audio recording of the interview, approximately 47 minutes. This feature was actually featured on an earlier separate individual Fellini film release, but now we have it here for the supplements for INTERVISTA. And so, but it's relevant too because Marcello Mastroianni is, of course, very much linked with the world of Fellini because of his iconic appearances in films such as La Dolce Vita and also 8½, and also Fellini, A Director's Notebook, and also INTERVISTA, and also other films that aren't included in the set, like City of Women, for example. But there is a close association between Marcello Mastroianni and Fellini, and so it's nice to get Gideon Bachman's interview here. It's an audio recording, and I love Marcello Mastroianni's honesty and wit and sincerity, and he's talking about his friend Federico, so that's a really wonderful thing. He's also talking about 8½, and why he really thinks that's such a great examination of how this man feels, and how it's almost like he is, this is something that many men might themselves feel as well. And so that was something that he identified as being very powerful about the film 8½. And he's also talking about working with Fellini, and talking about, he mentions also working on La Dolce Vita as being one of the best times of his life. Fabulous. And he also talks about meeting Fellini for the first time, and how that essentially changed his career. So this is a great interview to have. So I'm glad it's carried over from past releases now on the set for purposes of the INTERVISTA disc. So this is the interview with Marcello Mastroianni, circa 1963, approximately 47 minutes. And then we have the supplement, which is called Fellini's TV. And this is an interesting supplement because it's a 2003 Italian television documentary, and it's described by the supplementary menu as being a collection of the TV commercial materials that Fellini had prepared for purposes of his film Ginger and Fred. And so these materials, we understand, it's a collection of these materials, some of which weren't used, but some were in that final film. And so that it's an interesting way of expression in this TV language that Fellini seems to be interpreting for purposes of these this kind of commercial or TV commercial or faux TV commercial type of work. It's approximately 35 minutes. It's really interesting, especially when we understand Fellini's comments and views on TV. We got very brief comments, but he still has some strong takes on television. So this is an interesting perspective. I think this supplement, I think it would have been really fascinating to have this supplement, say, as maybe associated with the film Ginger and Fred. And so that's my way of saying that it would have been really cool to have had the film Ginger and Fred included in Essential Fellini. And I think this supplement is great. It's a great supplement, don't get me wrong, but it also calls attention to the fact that Ginger and Fred is not included in the set. And if you are able to find Ginger and Fred, please watch it, because it's another great 80s Fellini film, and it's so great for a number of reasons. It does have some commentary about the influence of television on entertainment, and also it's about somehow trying to recapture something of the past as represented by dance, and Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And it also, of course, is so great because it features Marcello Mastroianni and Giulietta Mazzina in a great pairing. So, again, I'll talk a little bit more about it in a later video, but anyway, this supplement, Fellini's TV, I think is related more to that film than to Intervista, although it's good to have it here. And as I say, we do understand Fellini has a certain perspective on the aesthetic of television. So in that context, and also in the context of further seeing the output of Fellini's creativity, it's good to have this Fellini's TV. And so that is the extent of the supplements with respect to this disc, which features the film Intervista, disc 14. I do want to emphasize once again that this film is marvelous. It is exceptional. It is clever. It is witty. It is very, very nuanced and very layered. And it is another great example of the genius that is Federico Fellini. This is the film Intervista. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.